My name is Aaron Green, and I wanted to thank the Technology Committee and the panelists for putting this panel together. The Technology Committee thought that social media and its influence in plastic surgery is a very important topic. We wanted to share it with the membership. The 4 speakers that agreed to talk today were chosen by the Technology Committee based on their well-recognized expertise using social media and its involvement with plastic surgery. We decided to go with a point-counterpoint type format where we're going to have 2 speakers talk about the benefits of social media and plastic surgery, and then the second 2 speakers will talk about the risks and potential cons of social media and plastic surgery. So each speaker is going to have about 10 to 12 minutes, and then we'll take questions at the end. And again, I wanted to thank everyone for coming, and I'm looking forward to learning from our speakers. So the first speaker will be Dr. Furness.
Thank you, Aaron. The title of my topic is Social Media for the Plastic Surgeon. There are several reasons for a plastic surgeon to be on social media, including to attract patients, to increase the reach of blogs, videos, and branding, to improve public education, thought leadership, to connect with other plastic surgeons, to read more plastic surgery articles, and to live tweet meetings. You can use hashtag AAPS 2017 to live tweet this meeting. But I'm going to focus on attracting patients. So if your goal is to attract patients, who is your audience? To find out, in our practice, we decided to do a survey of 100 patients in our practice, which is 100% aesthetic. And we asked patients to indicate which of the following 6 platforms they use, including Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, Twitter, and YouTube. And we asked them to check off one of, I don't use it, monthly or less, weekly, daily, or several times a day. And this is what we found. The blue bars indicate that patients don't use that app. And if we look at Twitter, we can see that that's the towering high bar. Let's also look at the orange and red bars. We can see that the orange bar in Twitter is very low. Only 3% of our patients use it once a day, and there is no red bar. None of them use it at all several times a day. But let's look at Facebook. That's the most used app. And if we look at the orange and red bars, we can see that 53% of our patients are on Facebook once or more a day. Now, just over half of our patients are not on Instagram, but 30% are on it once or more a day, which indicates that if they're on it, they're engaged. If we look at Pinterest, it's like YouTube. Most of our patients are on those apps, but there's not a lot of engagement, which would go along with possibly they're using it to just look things up when they want to find something. Now, 3/4 of our patients are not on Snapchat, so it might look like it's a waste of our time. But then if we look at the orange and red bars, we see that over half of those on Snapchat are highly engaged. So the 3 apps we would want to focus on to attract patients to our practice would be Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, and that actually reflects global findings. So what should we post? What do patients want to see? Well, we decided to ask them that as well. So we listed 13 types of posts, and we asked our patients to indicate one of, I'm very interested, not interested, or it's a real turnoff. And this is what we found. The top 3 most popular posts, with 4/5 of our patients wanting to see these, were contests for a free product or treatment, non-surgical of course, and before and after photos, and information about the practice. 3/4 of our patients were interested in announcements of office events, special offers available only to social media users, testimonials from patients, videos of treatments, the doctor's videos, doctors' blogs, and casual photos of the doctor and staff. Patients were less interested in lay articles and scientific articles, with just over a half interested in those. And the only type of posts they were definitely not interested in were posts that included links to scientific articles that charged a fee, such as our journal articles. So this would be a big motivation to writing a post for the lay public for any article that scientific article you write that you would like the public to view. Many people consider a blog to be a type of social media. It's very effective in educating the general public and patients, especially with evergreen posts such as, why would somebody need a tummy tuck when maybe they want liposuction? You can load a blog post with videos, particularly videos that you create, and links to other, say, blog posts that you've written. It's a great referral source to your website, and then you can disseminate it via social media and your newsletter. Now, when you're writing a blog, and I use WordPress, think search engine optimization for all elements of the blog, including the title. The title of this is Breast Implant Comparison Round versus Shaped. So my keyword is breast implant. Now that's 2 words, but a keyword can be 1 word, a couple words, or a phrase like how much does a breast augmentation cost? Now I want to populate this with an image. That makes it much more attractive to the viewer, but it also allows me to load up more metadata for those little spiders that are searching to answer entries in search bars. So I can put a title, and I'm thinking keywords, caption, again keywords, and I don't want to ignore the alt text, which stands for alternate text, which is for 2 people, blind people who are blind, and also those who don't have an image on their monitor. And so the alternate text is a method of describing what the image is about. And again, you can load it with more keywords as you can a description. Then you can embed links. In this situation, I embedded the link of a scientific article that will take somebody off my page, but I can also use it to link to other blog posts that I've written, keep them more on longer on my blog page, or I can link it to my website, say to before and after photos. And then once I publish it, then I want to announce to the world that I've written this blog. So I put it on Facebook, as you can see on the left, and I tweet about it, as you can see on the right. Both images are images from the blog. And then I announce it in my newsletter. Now, videos are becoming very popular. They're great for patient education, practice information, and testimonials. They're a huge tool for the plastic surgeon, and I encourage you to create your own. You can load them up on YouTube, and you can provide a description. They offer an area to enter a list of keywords. Again, remember to use phrases as well as single words, and then you can enter a short message to entreat people to view your video. And then it's time to spread the word, again, through social media. So you want to track your social media because that's a lot of effort to put into your spreading the word. So you want to check your reach. And this is a screenshot of my Twitter analytics. I've now got somewhere around 120,000 followers, and the analytics look great. Lots of retweets, likes, and replies. So I'm really excited. But I can't just rely on that because I don't know if I mentioned before, but I've never gotten a patient through Twitter. So I also want to look at direct patient referrals from my social media and blog. And I want to look at website traffic using Google Analytics, as well as looking at my overall practice growth. Now, when I go on Google Analytics, I can see organic ranking. How am I doing with my search through Bing or through Google? how many website sessions are derived from social media and blog referrals, and as well as Yelp. I encourage anyone interested in Google Analytics to go to this website, analyticsacademy.withgoogle.com. Social media also has its costs. You have to spend your time or pay for your staff time. And you also have to pay for your Facebook post to be seen by your followers. Just because you have 10,000 followers doesn't mean that very many of them will see your posts. It may just be 300 or 500. Depends on their algorithm. You can pay extra to boost it, and that costs money. And then, of course, their ads. It's important also not to ignore your website. We were interested in how important social media was relative to our website. And so we asked patients what influenced them in choosing our practice. And we asked them to compare website with all of our social media apps. And you can see that the blue bar indicates that our patients were much more interested, much more influenced by our website than social media. We also asked them, what did they check the day of the appointment? And many more people checked our website than they did our social media apps. So social media is a tool. It's not an end game, but it is a very useful tool because it can help get your videos, website, and blog out there. You can disseminate with your newsletter, and all of these things work together to enhance each other so that you can really get your voice out to the public. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jen Spurley, who's also going to be speaking about the benefits of social media.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to thank the association for having me on this very esteemed panel. I'm certainly humbled by the speakers, co-speakers, and that brings me to my disclosure slide. I have a fraction of Heather Furness's followers on Twitter, and also I've never gotten a patient through Twitter. I think it's important that you analyze the situation you're in. You know, I'm a young academic surgeon, so it's a little bit of a different setup. So my situation was that I was graduating from Hopkins and University of Maryland and have a job at OHSU where I got hired by Juliana Hansen, and I didn't want to arrive on day one and start my practice. I wanted to have hit the ground running. So if you look at this graph, it's a picture of the association from 1954, and that's kind of the traditional approach. As a young academic surgeon, you arrive at a new place, you get referrals from your senior partners, you team up with local surgeons, and then you go to the meetings hoping to be introduced to some of the big names. While that traditional approach certainly still is true, I think as a young academic surgeon, we have the access to social media, which really has changed the game a little bit. Open source journals, also global world of plastic surgeons. It's not just the US and Europe anymore. So you can connect with surgeons from around the world, and then the patient's emancipated. And in the center of all that, you have social media. And kind of what Heather already talked about a little bit, you have to figure out what is your goal. I think it's very important that you don't just start on social media without a clear aim. So for me, social media fame and promotion of the specialty wasn't really in the center. For me, it was more building the program, peer recognition, and networking, and then hopefully also a little bit of referrals. And at the core of all that really is, building your career, and I think personal fulfillment and potentially financial gain. So if we look a little bit at some people that are doing this on a kind of very high level, such as Heather Furness, Olivia Brantford, a lot of Twitter followers gives a lot of visibility to our specialty, and that's very important as well. Networking, some people do it more out of their own personal profiles, such as JP Hung, Justin Sachs, and fresh off the press from this meeting, Beatrice Berenger, who was visiting here. And then peer recognition, cross-marketing. Here a tweet from Heather Furness where she promotes a tweet from Rod Rorick. And then more direct, Amir Darafshar posting pre- and post-operative pictures, something that I haven't done yet. I think it's a little bit too early in my practice to do so, but I think it's a very, very valuable tool as well. So personal start, I started by separating my personal profile from my professional profile. Not everyone does that on Facebook, but I think it's important. And then in the middle, you have that kind of share group, which are the peers. Then I looked around the internet, kind of observing, found groups that are important to my practice, such as the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, And I just observed it in the beginning, kind of helped me understand who is who, which alliances are out there, and then down the road starting to join the discussions. So now when I go to meetings, the transgender-related meetings, I know people, they know me, we've been already engaging on the internet. Similarly, hashtag PRS Journal Club is a valuable tool where you can connect with leaders in the field. But there's so much out there. It's not just Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. You got to figure out where is your patient on the internet and then go and find them there. So for me, for example, TransBucket has been valuable. It's a site where patients post their results and you can kind of see what they say about you. For example, here the patient says that revision is going to be completely for free, which is fake news because the facility does charge something. So what this kind of shows you is that on social media, everything you say in clinic or everything you tell to a patient is going to be out there, whether or not you're not on social media, but everything is out there. So here's some pitfalls. Promoting your page too early, I think, is not a good thing. You want to create some content first. And really, again, separate your personal life a little bit from your professional life so you don't flood your high school teachers with a conference posts. And then for me, I'm not per se a salesperson, but you have to kind of put yourself out there. I mean, if you decide on doing it, you have to put yourself out there. But that comes with the risk of over-promising and potentially under-delivering results. So I've been very hesitant of speaking about specific techniques in my practice because I don't want to have patients hold me accountable to things I post just yet. And then there's guidelines for the American Board of Plastic Surgery that you should check out, and then definitely also check with your institution. Most academic institutions have woken up and are definitely willing and open to social media. Maybe that wasn't the case 5 years ago, but now they are. So there's usually a social media manager that you can contact and sit down and discuss what you want to do. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but overall you have to be professional. And remember, if a patient emails you on Facebook or sends you a message, you have to respond in a timely fashion. This is, for example, the social media channel request form at our institution. So when I started my practice, I already had multiple patients scheduled, some of them through Facebook, some of them through internal referrals. But next step for me was really kind of building my practice. And there was a newspaper article that came out prior to me starting in Oregon, and that kind of put the pressure on me in this first few weeks. I was well trained through my mentors at Hopkins and University of Maryland, but I didn't yet have any of my own results, such as the one on the right, to show. So I took my patients on a journey with me. I went for my travel fellowship, and my prospective patients could kind of follow me along. And that definitely took the edge off a lot in the first few weeks in clinic. Patients come in, they're like, oh, I've been following you on the internet, and you're kind of seeing where you've been traveling. And of course, also present your research. So then, once up and running and having been working for a few months, you really want to figure out who are my internal, external collaborators, and then also which patients are good and can help me promote my practice. So here's some potential patients that I identified. So this was a patient that wrote a book, Self-Made Woman, that's going to be nationally launched. So she brought someone into the OR that wanted to film her surgery. So for me, that was a perfect opportunity to ask her if I could cross-market. And of course, she was more than happy to do that. Patients that ask you in clinic, hey, can I take a picture of you for my Facebook account? You fire right back at them and say, well, absolutely, but can I use it as well for mine? And then you're always going to have people that are really supportive on your page, people that like most of your posts, comment on them, and those people you want to acknowledge because they're going to be your fierce supporters in case you have someone that may not be as happy. So that's an important point. Intramural collaborators. Something that I've learned being at Hopkins, we had the Business Thursdays, which were sponsored by Stan Klatsky and put up by Andrew Lee and Amir Darafshar. And we talked, there were a few sessions on social media and definitely important lessons as a young plastic surgeon to take on. And Hopkins has its own Instagram page where they support residents, acknowledge ancillary staff, and also chair emeritus and current chairs. So I took that to Juliana Hansen, and she was very enthusiastic, and we started our own Instagram webpage, and the residents love it because they can post up their social pictures, conferences, and give visibility to future potential applicants. These are incoming residents. And then identify social media collaborators. So I've been working with the facial team. This is a joint patient of ours. The facial team is based in Spain, so we started collaborating and helping each other out on social media. Then a good friend of mine in Italy, a reconstructive surgeon, and we did some research together, but then also, again, help promote our practices. And last but not least, it's important to also post your research, because most journals nowadays, although they're not open access, will allow you to download for the first few weeks. So it's a good means of distributing your research before it becomes only per pay. So what about followers? It's a little bit like an action potential, like some event triggers that you suddenly get a lot of followers. So I looked at a friend of mine from Switzerland, and he was posting pictures with all these famous people. So I figured I'd try to do the same thing, but it didn't really give me that many more followers. It did give me, I don't know if it's related, but it did give me a rhinoplasty early in the practice. Then there's, as Heather also alluded to, some aspects that you can pay for, online referral basis, or that boost button. And I actually used that boost button in the purpose of this conference. I've never used it before, but I was curious, so I paid $50 and put one of my posts up there. And you can check, who you want to target, which regions, which interests. And this is the day before, and that's 24 hours after, so 5,500 people that you can reach. So it's a powerful tool, but it did backfire on me a little bit, because it was an article that I wrote in terms of the Affordable Care Act, and that can backfire on you. So people that are writing, things you don't want to have on your page. So for an academic surgeon, I don't know if promoting your page financially through Facebook is necessarily the best thing, but I figured I'd give it a try for the purpose of this talk. More than anything else, the reason I love Facebook is because you can interact with your patients directly. Patients, after a clinic visit, they may not be able to say something because they're shy or something, and then they go home and send you a message from home, or also criticism. But it's a very direct way of communicating with your patients. So to quote Joe Saletti, who visited Hopkins a few years back, and he said, just put one foot in front of the other in terms of our specialty, and you just keep walking, and amazing things will happen. And I think it's the same thing with social media. You never know what kind of collaborators you meet and what kind of patient engagement you'll have. And then I also want to invite everyone. We're having a transgender panel tomorrow morning at 7 for people that are interested. Thanks.
Our next speaker is going to be David Song, and he's going to focus on cons and risks of social media.
Thank you very much. This is an important panel. I think hopefully we'll have a robust discussion. These are my disclosures. And everything I say in this talk is not necessarily condoned by any of these organizations. These are my personal musings. I'd like to acknowledge actually the social media task force that I created when I was president, and a lot of this data and this slide deck was produced by our social media task force. Also approved by our legal team at AAPS. So Heather and Jens really sort of covered this pretty well, but the social media, if by now you don't know what it is, you must be either living under a rock or a digital rock. You can see the number of users here that are prolific. Everyone has a Facebook account. In fact, I'm just curious, how many in this room don't have a Facebook account? Raise your hand. It's impressive. Wow. You guys have been living under a rock. These are just some facts that I'm going to go over, which helps to build the case. This is extremely powerful, but it can cut both ways, so I want everyone to be careful of that. So those of you that raised your hand that don't have a Facebook account, I'm curious, how many of you folks in the audience regularly engage in one of these 6 media? Raise your hand. Okay. That's a good, I'd say about 75% of the audience. And this is extremely powerful, as Jens and Heather alluded to, 5 billion minutes a month spent on Facebook. 140-character Twitter messages that our new president has made even more powerful. Snapchat. Who has not heard of Snapchat? Okay, good. This is something that we're grappling with, and I want to share some data at the end, and again, hopefully spark discussion as to how to contain it and how to do it appropriately, because this has been, during my presidency, I probably got at least 30 communications related to someone in the southeast part of our country utilizing Snapchat for his own personal gain. So, Jeff Bezos of Amazon said it best: if you make customers unhappy in the physical world, they may tell 6 friends. If you make customers unhappy on the internet, they can each tell 6,000 friends instantaneously. And this is the power and the scary aspect of social media. Just to share with you some of the evidence as to how powerful this has been for ASPS, our social media task force has increased our followers by 60%. Engagement has increased 34%. Web traffic has increased 97%. Our Twitter followers have increased by 48%. You can see just within a short period of time with the formulation of our social media task force how powerful this engagement platform has been for prospective patients and continuing patients. The impressions are really critical as well, because that's what helps to quantify engagements on social media. And you can see that our organic impressions are over 3 million. It's a number of times your content is associated with your page was seen in a news feed, on a ticker, or visits to your page. That's staggering, 3 million. Twitter, over 4 million. So there's actually numerics to this and some metrics. For paid advertising on social media platforms, the research shows that the cost of a single impression is about 12 cents. So with our social media task force at ASPS, we have garnered over $885,000 worth of impressions, media, advertising, and that's all been done for free. And so you can see how powerful social media has become. The hashtag plastic surgery is the most popular and visible medical specialty hashtag on social media, and basically over 95% of that usage is owned by board-certified plastic surgeons. I'll just click through this quickly. How's it used on social media? You've heard Jens and Heather talk about it. It's 80% of internet users have looked online for info on health topics. 34% of users have read about someone's experience with health issues. 24% of internet users have consulted online reviews about medical treatments. It allows all the things that Heather and Jens talked about, and it stays, and that elevation of your brand has been absolutely powerful for harnessing, for those that harness social media. This is how we've used it in ASPS, and you saw a few examples previously, so I won't spend much time on this. Here's what every hospital system now has: some sort of social media platform, whether it's tweeting about hospital open heart surgery or craniopagus twins separation or face transplants or penile transplants. This is what everyone has done now. If you don't have a social media platform in healthcare, you're virtually good as living under a digital rock. But let's talk about the ethics for a second. I think if you look, and I wrote a piece in Plastic Surgery News last year, that technology constantly outpaces our ethics. Many of the audience members here will recognize that in the 70s, advertising a practice was taboo. That was considered ethically, sketchy. In the 90s, when everyone was getting websites, again, this audience, probably many of you will remember that, how could you do that? That's unprofessional, that may be unsavory. In 2000s, reality TV took over. And today it's social media. So it's hard to know what's next, but what I can tell you is that this is what our society in general, the people that engage your office for healthcare, both elective and emergencies, are used to. It's here to stay, but there's definitely some pitfalls. There's ethical and professional violations that we have all seen recently and see it over and over again. There are legal issues, which I'll go into. Once you put it out there, there's loss of ownership or copyrightable information. Exposure of patient data, even with expressed consent. And there's also negative reactions, as you saw the Mickey Mouse meme a little while ago from Jens. The thing about this is, you may think today your patient has consented for your use, but they can change their mind tomorrow. And that is already out there and it's permanent. So it really is a brave new world. What are the boundaries of professionalism? We talked a little bit about this. Sam and I had a sidebar, but they say, you know, unprofessional behavior, it's kind of like pornography. You sort of know it when you see it. But even the whole realm of pornography has changed in the last 30 years, and it's changing quickly. So how do we, as a society, as a specialty, stay on board and ahead of these potential legal issues, ethical issues, copyright issues, and HIPAA and patient privacy issues? A lot of the, if you look at the legal terms, and no one reads this stuff, but most sites will reserve this in fine print. You grant Snap Incorporated and our affiliates a worldwide royalty-free, sub-licensable, and transferable license to host, store, use, display, reproduce, modify, adapt, edit, publish, and distribute content. So the minute you put something on Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube, or any other, Pinterest, and you have expressed patient consent, you don't own it anymore. It's owned by the world and by Snapchat. When you put something online, as everyone knows here, and I remind my daughters every day, whatever you put online, it's permanent. It'll never, ever, ever go away. And this is what you can see. Some of it's good, some of it's evergreen content that we want to promote our specialty, but this sword cuts both ways. You can see that I'm sure Mr. President is perhaps regretting, or maybe not, some of the tweets that he's written about wiretapping because it's not true, but it's there forever. One of the first instances, and this is in 2011, where a doctor was actually fired and reprimanded by the state medical board for posting a patient info on Facebook. So again, once you, even if you have consent, they could change their minds. And just a simple viewing of what's out there on social media, remember, it becomes searchable and permanent. And here are just some headlines that are just in social media that will never go away. And these are patients that perhaps at one point gave consent and then changed their mind later. But this is out there forever for everyone to see. So HIPAA should be the minimum standard, and protecting patient privacy is absolutely key. We must maintain a professional demeanor, but again, that word professionalism is ever changing. So here are some recommendations, and for the lack of time, I'm going to go through this quickly, but the Federation of State Medical Boards has a recommendation. There are some statements that everyone should look at and abide by. You should protect patients at all costs. Be forthcoming with your credentials and conflicts of interest. There's a standard of professional ethical behavior that we must also adhere to. And I'll have this available for anyone that needs it, but this is all out there that are guidelines, again, from the Federation of State Medical Boards. There's AMA guidelines. Again, standards of patient privacy and confidentiality. There's the AAPS Code of Ethics, which is very explicit to how we conduct ourselves online. And then finally, the AAPS has a set of rules and professional guidelines as well to render services to humanity with full respect for human dignity. Physicians extend not only to the individual, but also to our society. And this, again, will be available to you. But it's a very powerful tool, as I've shared with you. It cuts both ways. Whatever you put on patient photos on your websites are forever. So, you know, prior to coming to Georgetown at University of Chicago, we never put patient photos online. Maybe that hurt us in the short run, but in the long run, that's been very helpful. At Georgetown, we're going to adhere to those policies as well because you don't own them, and that's the biggest thing. Thank you again for your attention.
Our final speaker is Sam Lin, and he's also going to focus on potential negative aspects of social media.
Thanks very much, and thank you, Aaron, for organizing this great panel and talk throughout the year. Social media here is really here to stay. I want to just share with you some more cautionary tales, and finally the thought that if you can't beat them, join them, but really do it in with the highest ethics and the highest road possible. We recognize these apps. And we know that social media, as in terms of the AAPS website, has increased significantly over time, over a short period of time. And just briefly, Facebook continues to lead the pack far and away in terms of daily users. Twitter really has been flat over a number of period of years now, and the newer upstarts with respect to the lower two icons, Snapchat and Instagram, have really taken hold and been more popular. So we know that it's a cost-effective means of recruitment, in particular for surveys, clinical trials we just talked about. Its engagement allows for scalability and also interaction with a large, diverse patient demographic. It is a new day and a shift from passive information for patients to really seeking active information from patients, but it's also important not to overstep boundaries, especially ethically. We have to be aware of the reliability of the source of the information being shared on social media, and this is indeed a new age that requires new rules. King Belshazzar in ancient Babylonia was once depicted as having a feast. And during this feast, there was a disembodied hand that all of a sudden showed out of nowhere and began scribbling something on the wall. This is the etymology of the writing on the wall. And so it portended the ultimate demise of the Babylonian Empire due to this writing. Dr. Kodatek wrote a piece, a con piece, that the writing is on the Facebook wall, the threat posed by social media in the American College of Surgeons recently. Social media, in part, she wrote, is possible because the Telecommunications Act of 1986 protects specifically website operators from legal responsibility for user-generated content. What does this mean? It means that the user may face civil liability for defamation or illegal content, and that communications with this worldwide audience, as we've learned, are indeed indelible and irrevocable. And then, so we as surgeons know that we are ethically and legally obliged to protect the privacy of our patients. All of us, I know that swore the Hippocratic Oath upon graduation from medical school, which recognized the importance of patient privacy and respect, that I will respect the privacy of my patients for their problems are not disclosed to me that the world may know. And we know that professionalism is the foundation of our relationships with patients and society, and we must remember that our present social media might not reflect not only upon themselves, but also as individuals and also with the entire surgical profession. There have been studies based on this. A multi-institutional study of Facebook use looked at surgical residents at 57 programs, found that 12.2% of users with public profiles had posted things, unprofessional contact, also items in violation of HIPAA. These commonly posted contents also included alcohol use and explicit content as well. Another study in Journal of Surgical Education in 2010 looked at a single institution, found that 14% of surgical residents, again, and faculty had publicly available content on Facebook referencing patient care. And you're noticing a trend here. 3% of tweets self-identified by physicians on Twitter were unprofessional, and somehow surgeons were comprised of the largest subset of physicians in the study when identified by specialty. And so one way to avoid sharing unprofessional content on social media is to avoid sharing personal content altogether in terms of accepting and understanding of personal responsibility. And first and foremost, we always must remember protection of identified health and information for our patients. We know these stories of patients who have lost their people, employees, and healthcare workers who have lost their jobs over time from unscrupulous postings. These ethical concerns, and as we know, are involvement of privacy, informed consent, and more importantly, swaying patient decisions based on biased information and endorsement through liking, retweeting, and sharing. John's mentioned his practice in terms of transgender, and this concept of the invasion of a safe space in patient networks is key here. And so what I mean by that is that There are patient groups on Facebook, on different social media platforms that are really closed, and they would not rather have healthcare workers, their offices, or ancillary staff invading their space because they really need to have this opportunity to share their personal experiences with others. There was a commentary in the Aesthetic Surgery Journal earlier this year that videos being posted tended to glamorize complex surgical procedures. These folks posed for photos while the patients were under anesthesia. They emphasized immediate positive results with discussing complications or postoperative care, and it potentially dropped the high standards that should always be adhered to. It also trivialized aesthetic surgery and could lead to patients being and also developing unrealistic expectations. There is a potential for social media to assist for recruiting for social trials or clinical trials, as we know. Privacy issues are present and need to be addressed. And again, like I mentioned, being intrusive into network groups where providers are certainly not welcome. So what happens if information, images, or videos shared on social media causes distress to the public? And what happens when these conflicts go viral? As we know, anything posted online, even if deleted after 10 seconds, 30 seconds, can be used against you. And more importantly, the fourth dimension of these images and likenesses of patients being modified over time without the patient's knowledge or permission, any day, next week, next year, 10 years from now. Multiple studies have addressed the social media ethics, in particular recruitment of patients to these studies. Whereas in an offline center with an IRB, there are strict regulations of protecting the patient, privacy concerns. There really isn't when you have online recruitment. And really, essentially, you need a recruitment or a patient navigator for these typically these efforts in terms of recruiting patients. And so who else is using social media and with respect to other fields? There's a very famous or infamous case of this patient, Sarah Murnahan, who was underage in respect to the fact that she was a cystic fibrosis patient who wanted to have a lung transplant. At the time, and currently also, there was a dissension, or the policies basically prevented adult lungs from being transplanted into a pediatric patient, and this is also for medical reasons. Her friends and family took this case and put it to a Facebook forum and really rallied the entire public and this institution to essentially coerce them to be able to have a lung transplant for this patient. This ascended to the levels of Catherine Sebelius, and Tom Price in terms of weighing in what they thought. So eventually, she actually did have a lung transplantation, partial lung transplantation in terms of the adult to a pediatric patient on June 12, 2013. And although they posted that the lung transplant was absolutely successful, it was essentially rejecting. And 3 days later, she had a second lung transplant. By that point, the public had kind of taken about this story and had formulated a secondary contradictory post to how this was going on. And so it ended up being a complete disaster and really very traumatic for the patient, most importantly from the amount of vitriol that was cast upon them. And so, trends noting social media may help solicit organ donors, but it's important to be careful of what's being taught and what's being shared. Individuals with no information or facts comment on social media without any recourse. I'm going to move along here. And so we need to understand regulations based on state licensure and medical records and really recognize the importance of transparency and disclosure of potential conflicts of interest. Dr. Song touched upon the fact that there are published guidelines, institutional guidelines in terms of developing a policy, and if not having one, having a department representative who are responsible for creation and maintenance of these websites. Dr. Song and I, and Dr. Warwick, Ollie Branford put out a paper on the hashtag plastic surgery term and found that most of them did not tie their posts with evidence-based medicine. And other considerations include those who are buying posts and with respect to the general public, thinking that someone with more followers has a reputable source. And then lastly, kind of moving on social media, we know that board-certified plastic surgeons, unfortunately, some of which are promoting non-accredited physicians to perform plastic surgery procedures. There's a code of ethics that we went through. And currently, hotspots of controversy, specifically Snapchat. There's significant discussion regarding the ethics of streaming live surgery, both from a patient confidentiality issue, legal issue, and professional issue. Despite content disappearing, the content is always available and may be modified. And again, those of us, board-certified plastic surgeons, promoting non-board-certified physicians, cosmetic surgeons on Snapchat. We've gone through this. We've gone through the federal state board stuff, American Medical Association. And so why participate in social media? Or if you can't beat them, join them. Well, for me, it's to educate the public. It's to provide evidence-based medicine, not to be self-promotional, and to promote the field and its board-certified plastic surgeons. For those reasons, patient protection, physician protection, and also being stewards and protecting the field of plastic surgery are why I participate in social media, and to attain and maintain professionalism to the highest degree, both offline and online. Thank you.
Great. So the rest of the time is open for the audience to ask the panelists questions.
Sam, thanks for bringing up the legal issues. As a program director, I tell the residents very explicitly, no operating room photographs. And I don't know if anybody else has had this experience, but we have a lot of travelers come through. I don't let anybody use cameras or like their cell phones in the operating room, and I've caught a number of people. And I know that our institution, like a couple of the travelers, were fired for posting photos online. I think that's another thing where we potentially could have some liability if we're the surgeon in charge of the room, and then someone under our direction, we're not directing them, but in our charge, essentially, takes a photo unbeknownst to us and then posts it on Facebook, for example.
Yeah, Gary, thanks so much. We've had those issues specifically with M&M conference, even without travelers, but our own institutional research fellows who have been a row of them taking pictures in the background. So it's definitely, who knows where those pictures go, for sure.
Hamid Rafshah from Baltimore. Dr. Song, I was interested to see that you did not want or have not allowed any residents to post any pictures of photos, and yet the population at large wants to see photographs. They want to see befores, they want to see afters, and in fact, some of my posts have been both well received by the patients who I posted, and also I use it as educational material for some of the patients that I come in and say, this is your befores and afters for, say, vascular malformations. So my question is, in this day and age where patients are demanding to see photographs, are we going to be left behind by putting limitations on what we can post?
That's an excellent question, and I will preface it by saying that I've been involved in 2 trials as an expert witness where a patient initially gave consent and then changed their mind. And now the images are forever in space and not owned by anybody. Because as you know, nothing's truly deleted in space. So patients change their minds. That's one thing. The other thing is for us, I think that we're trying to strike a high note of professionalism. So if we have pictures, we have them on iPads. When patients come in and have a consultation, they'll get as much time as they need or want to go through pictures of patients that have given express consent, and we refresh that. And so I think that's a way of getting around it. Will we lose a few patients because we don't put, pre and post-ops of BBLs on our website? I'm okay with that.
I don't think it's about losing patients. I think it's about falling behind in the times. I think that, we're seeing more and more of a Snapchat generation where we're seeing video footage of surgical clips, and you know, let's face it, the population at large wants to see this. And I think we have to move with the times.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's actually why I created the social media task force. I think there's a way to do it right, and there's a way to protect our patients and to continuously ask for permission. I don't think consent is a one-time, one-and-done thing, because again, patients will change their minds, and I think I think the onus is on us when we do that to continue to say, hey, we're getting a lot of really great feedback from your, facial, this picture that I put up. Is it still okay for us to continue to refresh that? I think it's incumbent upon us to do that. So absolutely correct. I think we're, again, in violent agreement about social media being powerful, being a tool that we have to harness so that we don't get left behind. But I believe there's a right way to go about it, and a professional way that is going to pass muster in your own eyes and in the eyes of your peers.
I'll be interested in 10 years whether that changes.
Malcolm Paul, Newport Beach, California. Thank you. Excellent, informative panel. You know, the issue of patient confidentiality with regard to the medical records is really even more important, because a patient can post anything they want on social media. It may be totally inaccurate as to what happened surgically or medically. They may disregard what their history was. They may disregard, emotional needs they had, et cetera, psychiatric issues, and so forth. If you comment on their posting, you are divulging the medical records, which are subject to civil liability. To my knowledge, that has not been tested yet in civil court vis-a-vis a malpractice case against a physician or surgeon for divulging that information. It seems to me totally unfair that patients can post whatever they want, and now, as mentioned, this panel can reach 6,000 people, not just 9, but 6,000 over the internet. How do we respond to that and yet still maintain the code of ethics and not be held personally liable for that exposure?
That's a great question, Malcolm, and I think that's what we struggle with, because there is no accountability for people out there to discredit people on the internet. And so one of the things that we've struggled with on the AAPS task force is how to push content that is proper, appropriate, that elevates the brand of what we do as board-certified plastic surgeons, and at the same time comports with the guidelines, the ethical guidelines that we have. So it's a challenge. It's a daily struggle, and I think the way to combat that is by pushing out genuine content that has been codified by us.
But that still limits our ability to respond to inaccurate postings by patients.
You're correct.
Right.
Yeah, I would only add that basically with, of all of us in terms of bad reviews is not to respond. You can't engage on this, with this, basically an online fight online, because it just never ends well. And so I think, to echo that point, it's just continuing the mission of putting out good information that's evidence-based, and just keeping the highest road possible.
I just wanted to say, kind of one counterpoint. I think to a certain extent, it's very black and white. It's like the guidelines are kind of a very strict line. There are absolutely no patient pictures, nothing from the OR, no kind of blue gowns, and none of that. And in the reality, I agree with Amir Rafshar. Like, time has moved on for some parts of the population, not for everyone. And from my personal way I do it is when a patient goes out on the internet themselves, like that patient that I showed you that is promoting her book, and she comes and films her own surgery in the OR, and it's going to be all over. I feel that's, on an individual case, that's fine. So I think we can't, some of those rules are a little bit too set in stone.
Yeah, and again, those are guidelines, right? So I think that's important to note. And I just want to be clear, this is not a negative on social media. Again, I'm the one that created it for our society. I think there's a way, and there's a sweet spot where we can do it correctly and above board and maintain a level of professionalism.
Okay, Dr. Bernard.
Steve Bernard from Cleveland. For Dr. Furness, can you give me an idea of what percentage of your promotional dollars go towards social media?
It's very low. It's probably less than 0.5%, but actually just yesterday, one of our staff got back from a social media conference that had nothing to do with medicine. And so we're actually looking at increasing that. We're looking at Facebook Live, the 3 big major growing apps, she just emailed me, are Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook Live. And so we're just starting to do Facebook Live. PRS is doing Facebook Live. It's like a tutorial, or it has the potential to be a tutorial. I think those are Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook Live are all images, video-based, and they have tremendous potential as far as patient education.
And then a question for Dr. Song. Do you see a point where we get to censoring physicians, because some of the content by plastic surgeons out there is pretty wild. Do you see a point where the ASPS will be censoring members for their content, or the board perhaps?
Yeah, and that has and continues to happen through our ethics committee and our judicial committee, where surgeons that are clearly breaking the guidelines and the code of ethics are being brought up and being not only censored, but actually being dismissed from the society. So that has happened. And our ethics committee and our judicial committee is probably busier than it's ever been because of things like that.
Two more questions.
Ben Lemelman, University of Chicago. Incredible panel. Great to see you in real life, side by side, not just virtually. And I just am fascinated by how each of you use social media to different capacities. And I was just wondering if you can comment on how, and if you do engage with patients, do you engage with them in a private setting online, in a public setting online? And do you think about the future ramifications if something perhaps should go wrong, let's say when you do post a photo, something to that effect? Thank you.
So the way I interact with patients, it's very, very limited. Meaning, let's say someone asks me a medical question, I'm not going to answer it. Always defer them to call the office and make an appointment. You for sure do not want to give any medical information over the internet. I would never do that. But I think it's a nice way of engaging, just kind of on a collegial level with the patient that, says they're nervous for the consultation. You say, you don't be nervous, especially my patient population is sometimes very nervous coming to healthcare providers in general. So kind of taking those nerves off, but no medical information. I would not recommend doing that. I don't know how you handle that.
Yeah, I agree. We do some patient education posts, but we also do posts about staff anniversaries, birthdays. Those tend to get a lot of feedback from patients, but it's all congratulatory. And we actually haven't had a lot of, direct patient inquiries, and we would take that offline.
Jim Zins from Cleveland. David, can I just ask you, obviously it's very clear the patient can change his or her mind, and now you've got this picture, this before and after on social media, and it's a problem. How about just your before and after pictures? How often do you suggest that we get the consents reissued?
Yeah, and this is something where I think everyone has to have his or her own personal bar of professionalism. Again, perhaps I'm more on the side of being extra conservative because I have served as an expert witness in situations where patients have changed their minds, and it goes to a settlement, and it's just another thing that you have to worry about. I think it's incumbent on us as perhaps a society, as a specialty, to have those type of guidelines where you're refreshing that consent, because a lot of it's evergreen, particularly for identifiable features in the head and neck region. Or patients with tattoos on their body. I mean, we just don't use those at all. Even for pre and post when they come to clinic, it's very critical that we blind out their eyes. And a lot of what we do, when we present our cases here in other venues is something that I think we need to adhere to.
Yeah, we arbitrarily do it every year. We reissue these consents every year. And maybe I could just make a little advertorial. This is a great panel. Aaron, thank you very much for putting it together. And we're going to use this as a kickoff for our next webinar that'll be run by Mary McGrath in June or July. So please look out for that. And I think we just scratched the surface on this very important issue.
Thank you. And that concludes the session. And thanks again for our panelists for sharing their expertise with us.